Emily was recommended to this company by her neighbor, Aunt Cindy, who was a friend of her mother's. Aunt Cindy herself worked there as a cleaner, but now that she was retiring and heard that Emily was looking for work, she said, "Since you have nowhere else to go, come to us. I won't say there's a lot of cleaning there. The people are mostly quiet and intelligent. They might just throw some papers beside the bins, and that's all the mess there is. And the pay is good. You won't get as much as a regular cleaner anywhere else. Plus, the schedule is flexible. No one makes you sit there all day, and if needed, you can even bring your little Alex with you. He's a calm boy, he'll sit in the corner while you work." Emily didn't have time to choose, she needed to earn money. She tried to get a job as a cashier in a small shop, and maybe also as a technician. But there, you had to sit all day, and she had a young son and a sick mother. What kind of job is that, from dawn till dusk? But if everything Aunt Cindy described was true, then it was perfect. However, when she started filling out the paperwork, Aunt Cindy added a spoonful of tar. "The boss there is, well, not a bad guy, I won't say that. But he's young. This company used to be in the red until Simon's father bought it. Whether he gifted it or something to his son. The father runs some kind of business himself, but what about his son? He's a good guy, but you need experience for such business matters. So, I'm thinking it might not survive again. Then you might have to leave." "Well, when will that be? And will it happen?" Emily shrugged, who already saw herself working in that office. And who the boss was didn't matter to her at all. She wouldn't be meeting him often anyway. And she was right. The boss didn't cause any problems, and the company, apparently, was doing well. Sometimes, the staff, mostly decent people, teased the new cleaner. Mostly wondering how such a young and pretty girl wasted her time on such low-paying and not very interesting work. And Emily had no intention of lying, inventing, or saying that she was studying and would soon live differently. Well, what can you do? Life turned out this way. Instead of studying, I had a child without a husband. My mom got sick, so looking for another job, and especially focusing only on her, is difficult for me. So, once my mom gets better, my son grows up, she joked, seeing nothing humiliating in working as a cleaner. You have to work everywhere, someone has to maintain cleanliness. And her mom told her, "If you can't sew with gold, sew with silver." Well, she doesn't sew with a hammer, she works with a mop because she never learned to sew. And she didn't get the job at the most convenient time a month and a half before the new year. So, there was nothing special about that. Well, she might lose some salary because of the New Year holidays. Insignificant. The inconvenience was in something else. Shortly before the holiday, the boss announced that they would have a corporate party for the whole team. The cleaner even received a special invitation. "Emily, don't hesitate, come. You are now an equal member of our team. And besides, gifts will be given out there." "Thank you, Simon, but I have to decline for personal reasons." "No, I just can't," she stammered. But of course, she wanted to attend the party. Emily hadn't been to a Christmas tree since her school years. And even then, it seems, in the younger grades. And in the older grades, she ignored any celebrations for the same reason: there was no money for dresses. They and her mom always lived modestly, and now even more so. The family seemed to have grown with the birth of Carl, but there were no financial improvements. So, she simply had nothing to wear to the party. And to imagine herself in her best dress, which was bought 3 years ago on sale, among her colleagues. Well, she couldn't even imagine it. If they dress up like that even on weekdays, as Emily never dreamed of, then at the corporate party, which will be in a restaurant. So, with apologies, she declined. The boss didn't insist, apparently guessing what was going on. He expressed regret and promised that she wouldn't be left without a gift. But Emily had one more thing to ask. I wanted to ask. Our daycare has already closed for the holidays. Can I come with my son tomorrow? He's 5, he's a calm boy. He'll sit in the utility room and won't bother anyone. Why not? Please do, Simon replied. Emily breathed a sigh of relief. Lately, her mother had been feeling particularly unwell. Leaving Carl with her was possible, but it was a pity for both of them. And here he would even enjoy it, a change of scenery. Besides, the office was beautifully decorated for the new year, and the boy clearly lacked that festive atmosphere. She didn't even have money for a beautiful big Christmas tree. They managed with a small plastic one and a few fir branches picked up from the Christmas market. At the daycare, they had a Christmas tree, presents, and even a real Santa came, as her son excitedly told her. And he was disappointed. But I didn't manage to put a letter under the tree for him, so my wish didn't come true. But will he look under ours? But they gave you a gift. Emily was surprised. Well, yes, candies and a toy bunny, but I wanted something else. What did you want? A real bunny? No. But I won't tell you, or it won't come true. But everything can happen. Emily didn't press further about her son's wish, she could hardly fulfill it. And so, everything could be attributed to Santa's forgetfulness and busyness. She felt sorry for him and was angry with herself. She couldn't find a decent father for her child, nor could she earn enough herself. Well, was it really that difficult to provide her son with everything he needed? Although, strictly speaking, she couldn't blame herself alone. She wasn't lazy, but somehow life didn't go the right way from the very beginning. She didn't have a father either, and her mother couldn't find a decent job either. She couldn't do much to improve their situation. So they lived, you could say, in poverty. And now, her son was continuing the same. And most of all, Emily was afraid of getting sick herself. She couldn't afford to ruin her child's life. Little Carl, of course, knew nothing about his mother's thoughts. And coming to her at work, he was very happy. He liked everything here, the large bright room, lots of friendly and kind people who petted him on the head and said what a good boy he was. And some even treated him with candy. But most importantly, the huge Christmas tree, which stood in the brightest corner. Tall up to the ceiling, covered with bright lights and shiny toys, much more beautiful than theirs at the daycare. And certainly better than theirs at home. Surely, Santa would definitely visit under such a tree. It was strange, though, that there were no notes under it. Although, it was understandable. These people surely had trees at home. Or maybe they were just adults and had already forgotten that Santa needed letters. But he remembered perfectly well. It was just a pity that he hadn't written the letter yet, but it could be fixed. After all, they were not somewhere else, but in the office, where there were plenty of papers and pens. However, his note was first seen not by Santa, but by the boss, Simon. He was just passing by the tree when most of the staff had already left. His gaze slid over the lower branches. He saw a crumpled piece of paper and indeed took it for carelessly discarded trash. But picking it up, he smiled. He saw that the paper was signed. It was signed in childish scribbles, Santa. He smirked. Apparently, the little one decided to ask for a gift for the new year even at his mom's workplace. He unfolded the paper, read it, and his heart squeezed. Dear Santa, the boy wrote. Please give me and my mom a real dad for the new year. Thank you. Written by Carl. Poor little one, Simon thought. Of course, it wasn't such a rare case. Many boys grew up without fathers. There seemed to be nothing unusual about it. But it was all very sad. The boy probably really missed his father if he was asking for more than just an expensive toy like a remote-controlled car or a real phone. He was asking for his dad. Maybe his mom had told him that when he had a dad, he would have everything else too. Emily was also pitiable. Young, beautiful, without a husband. And it seemed things weren't going well for her as she was forced to work as a cleaner. But on the other hand, she was to blame herself and understood her guilt perfectly. But what was the child suffering for? To be honest, as Simon opened the note, he was already prepared to grant the child's wish if it was feasible, to give him what he wished for. But as for the father, sorry, kid, but I don't have a dad. I'm not a great Santa, but oh well. I'll give him some ordinary children's gift, candy, some toy. Simon loved children and would like to have his own, primarily to fulfill various children's wishes. He remembered that many of his wishes weren't fulfilled in childhood, even though he grew up in a well-off family. But his mother died when he was very young, and his father apparently wasn't so attentive to his son's wishes. And Simon had long ago decided that someday he would spoil his own children without much thought to the possible harm. He wasn't married yet, but he had a fiancée, Mia. Also the daughter of a very wealthy person, even richer than his father. Of course, this didn't matter much to the young man. He liked her as a woman. And it even seemed to him that he truly loved her. She fit perfectly into the definition of a spoiled girl. She was used to having her wishes always fulfilled and wasn't accustomed to denying herself anything, living for her pleasure. But at the same time, she couldn't be called too spoiled. If there was an opportunity to use those possibilities, why should she deny herself anything? So Simon thought about his fiancée until recently. But a few days ago everything changed. He found out that Mia was cheating on him. It happened, as usual, by accident. He was driving to meet her, but, as luck would have it, got into a small car accident. Nothing serious happened, but he had to wait for the inspector, sort things out, give some statements. And as a result, he was an hour late for the appointed time. Knowing Mia's temper, it wasn't difficult to guess how she would react to such lateness. But he still went, thinking that she might still be sitting in the restaurant, waiting for him, and inventing various accusations of inattention and negligence in her mind. However, when he entered the establishment, he saw that his beloved wasn't bored at all, but was sitting in the company of some young man. And not just talking to him, but hugging him. And it seemed they were even kissing. At this point, he could express some grievances, which he decided to do immediately. He approached the table, made some venomous remark. Mia's companion stood up, told him to leave. Mia was also yelling something unpleasant to him. In short, Simon was recommended to leave, which he did immediately under the angry exhortations of his fiancée. After that, naturally, there could be no talk of any relationship. It couldn't be said that this killed Simon, but of course, he was upset. And so, thinking about the note from the child, he thought that since he had nowhere else to go and nothing much to do, it wouldn't hurt to throw a party for the child. It wasn't that difficult. Hardly anyone would condemn him for such a heartfelt impulse, especially since he wasn't planning to do anything special. Simon went to the toy store, bought several toys, a Santa hat and beard, and in a neighboring store a sweet set. With all this, he went to Emily's apartment, the address of which he had previously found out in the office. Near the apartment, he put on the outfit, rang the bell, and when Emily opened the door, cheerfully said, "Meet Santa." From behind her back appeared Carl, who joyfully clapped his hands. Naturally, he didn't recognize his mom's boss, but Emily herself did and was very flustered. Simon handed the boy the gifts and whispered to her, "Just decided to give them today, since you won't come to the corporate party." "Oh, thank you very much. Carl is so happy." "Come in," she said, flustered. Emily invited Simon to the table, but she didn't have anything special to treat him. And he didn't intend to stay long, but it was also awkward to leave immediately. So over a cup of tea, he talked with her a little bit. Emily apologized. "I'm sorry, I don't have anything special. I didn't expect you. Besides, you know, my mom is ill." "She's sleeping in the room," Emily apologized. "Where's the boy's father?" Simon asked, although it was all clear without words. But she still answered, "He doesn't have a father. He left us even before Carl was born." Then the son came into the kitchen, where the adults were sitting, and, pulling Santa aside, asked, "Did you find the note I left at my mom's work?" "I found it. That's why I came to you. It's just that fulfilling such a wish is difficult, you understand. A dad is a living person. How can I give him to you? He can only find himself, and I think it will happen soon," Simon comforted the boy. After spending a short time as a guest, he was getting ready to go home, feeling much lighter in his soul. He had done a good deed, made the boy happy, and so, everything in his life would eventually fall into place. Perhaps it would have been so if it weren't for one circumstance. The boy's father found out about his visit to the cleaner. This happened because Thomas had assigned security to his son some time ago. He had a reason to do so after it became known that raiders had their eye on the company, now owned by Simon. Thomas, fearing that something much more dangerous than a raid might threaten his son, for example, an assassination attempt, hired someone to watch over Simon. This was done discreetly, secretly from the young man himself. After all, Thomas knew his son's obstinate character and imagined how he would react if he found out about such interference in his life. This very guard was watching over Simon and then reporting to the employer about what was happening and all his movements. This time, he also hurried to Thomas to tell him what his son was doing in the evening. He tried to present everything in a slightly exaggerated light. That is, he claimed that Simon probably had a romance with this cleaner, to whom he appeared with expensive gifts and spent the whole night with her until morning. This news enraged Thomas. He had already learned everything from the same guard that his son had broken up with Mia. This alone was a serious nuisance since this marriage was beneficial for business. It would have given his son's company new opportunities. And now, out of jealousy, he had broken up with such a profitable bride. And for whom? To get together with the cleaner? Moreover, a single mother. How could he have known that he had hired the most unsuccessful private detective as his son's security? This man had a grudge against Thomas and was just waiting for an opportunity to hurt him as much as possible. This enmity had been brewing for a long time, and the businessman had long forgotten about one employee whom he fired, perhaps not very fairly. That person was very upset by this. As a result, he drank himself to death. This was the guard's father. The fact that Thomas hired him as a watcher over his son became a perfect opportunity for revenge. That's why this man deliberately distorted reality to drive a wedge between father and son. Since he acted in the interests of those same raiders from whom the father was going to save Simon. And the young man, as if on purpose, provided fodder for all sorts of accusations. He broke up with his fiancée, and now this acquaintance with the cleaner. Let Daddy rejoice at such behavior from his son. It would be very profitable for them to quarrel, and this happened soon. And not only thanks to the guard and his report. The thing is that the fiancée, now ex, suddenly realized that she was pregnant. This was not a joy for her, as she calculated the timing and realized that the father of her future child was the same lover whom Simon caught her with. And maybe she had some plans for this lover, but she doubted that her father would approve of such a choice. And secondly, the lover himself would hardly want to tie his life to her. However, there was a way out: to tell her father that she was pregnant with Simon's child, who had left her. And why not? After all, the father had no idea what caused the quarrel. She would present everything in a favorable light for herself, and naturally, Daddy would believe her. Well, not Simon. Besides, she, being a smart girl, understood that this marriage would be beneficial, first of all, for Simon and his company. That's why Mark soon learned everything from his daughter's words and flew into a rage. "What do you mean he left you?" the outraged father thundered. "Has he lost his mind? Doesn't he understand that I'll crush him to dust? Dad, I don't know why he decided that. Maybe it's better for you not to interfere in these matters? If he doesn't want to marry me, then it's fine. You can't force yourself on someone. After all, I'm not just any girl." But Mark wasn't going to forgive what had happened to either his failed son-in-law or his whole family. He went to an old acquaintance. To the same partner as Thomas. "Thomas, what does this mean?" "I understand everything. They fell out of love with each other when they were young. It happens. But what he did with the child, what do you call it?" "Hold on, Mark. I don't know anything about any child. Moreover, I don't interfere in their affairs at all and didn't even know the extent of their relationship. Your daughter seems to confide in you, but with me, he has only one answer: everything is fine, everything is good. I had no idea that something was wrong between them and Mia." "Exactly, and it's very bad that you don't know anything. These things need to be known. A little understanding is necessary, since these young people are like this. It's a nightmare. Mia is crying, she's pregnant. And your champion, your handsome boy, doesn't even know about it. Is this how decent people act?" Mark got angry. "Wait a minute. Maybe it's like that, or maybe they just had a fight. Come on, they're adults. They'll find common ground." Thomas tried to calm him down. "They already have. They found it so well that my daughter will be a single mother. Is that what you want? Or do you hope to ruin her with an abortion? Or maybe you just want to ruin our relationship. It's not in your interest, sorry. I'm not threatening you, but you understand. My daughter means more to me than business. Yes, more than anything in the world. She's my only one, and I don't want anything bad to happen to her." Thomas was already in a bad mood. He had major issues in his business. And now his son was bringing one surprise after another. In the end, the two fathers couldn't have a conversation. They parted as enemies. And then Thomas found out that Simon was having a relationship with some cleaner, who was already spending nights at his place. And she already seemed to have a child. What now? It's unknown what will happen now. He still needs to deal with his son. And he really doesn't like it when conversations like this come up. However, it had to be discussed because Thomas's own company was at stake. He knew very well that his friend Mark wasn't used to forgiving offenses. And especially not this one. And as a result, he could lose a lot, if not everything. So when his son came, his father attacked him with reproaches. "Do you realize what position you put me in? If you didn't want to marry that girl, then you shouldn't have started a relationship with her. Especially since things went so far between you. Do you know she's having your child?" "No, and I don't want to know. I'm not sure if it's my child." We broke up because I found out she was seeing other people, maybe even more than one. Couldn't you find that out earlier, before you had such close relationships that made you think the child might be yours? Anyway, we can only be sure after the child is born. But the child must be born within a legal marriage. So you want me to marry a woman I don't want to have anything to do with? Whom I don't trust and who doesn't love me, sharing her attention with others. Simon was truly outraged by his father's words. Yes, I don't care about your love. Do you realize I could lose my company? That is, my means of existence. Mark won't forgive me for what you did to Mia. Marry her, and then we'll see. If the child isn't yours, you can divorce her with a clear conscience. I'm not going to marry her with a clear conscience, sorry. And I'm not going to ruin my life to save your company either. And who do you plan to build your life with? Don't worry, I already know. Yes, who you spent last night with. Some cleaning lady who already has a child and, as I understand it, not yours. Do you think you can marry her calmly? Some unknown janitor girl who gives birth to God knows whose child. What? What does the cleaner have to do with it? I don't understand. I'm not going to marry her. Although, she's a more worthy woman than Mia. At least she's not trying to pin her children on anyone, lives honestly and works. Father and son couldn't agree on anything. And this next scandal weighed heavily on Thomas. Clearly, his son wasn't going to get married. So somehow he had to repair his relationship with Mark. But how to do it when Simon stubbornly refused to marry his daughter, guilty or not? The only option, maybe call him, talk to him, explain that Simon is hesitating for now, but maybe he'll agree later. No, that would probably be more offensive. After all, Mark seriously thinks that everyone around just dreams of marrying his beautiful daughter. And then suddenly Simon starts to think. No, that's not acceptable. What to do, huh? Am I supposed to marry this Marka who made such a mess? Time passed, but there was no clarity on this matter. Relationships with my son deteriorated irreparably, as did those with the failed suitor. Mark grew increasingly bitter. And as a result of a hostile takeover, Thomas lost his company. The heavy trials of several months took their toll. A middle-aged man, already in poor health, found himself in the hospital after a stroke. Simon rushed over, spoke with the doctor, and learned that the prospects were quite bleak. Thomas's condition is serious, he's partially paralyzed. As far as I know, even in such a state, people sometimes recover, but it will take a lot of time and effort. Right now, the main thing for him is rest. And make sure to hire a competent caregiver. All this plunged Simon into despair. He blamed himself for what happened to his father. He realized that lately he had caused him too much trouble. Even the fact that his father lost his company, which meant so much to him, was somewhat on his conscience. Really, what did it cost him to marry that Marka? Because of his pride, he practically ruined his own father. And now he had to figure out how to pick up the pieces. But how? Where to find a caregiver, doctors, medications? The problem was that there was very little money left, the father's company was gone, and the operation to save it, while unsuccessful, was very expensive. Then huge sums were spent on treatment, which, of course, yielded results. But if they stopped now, everything could fall apart. And the thought of his father, always so energetic and business-minded, becoming a bedridden invalid, was simply unbearable. Even hiring a good caregiver was difficult at the moment. Occasionally, Simon continued to communicate with Emily, but only at work. She thanked him for the joy brought to Carlo. Then they exchanged meaningless words. Once, seeing how worn out he looked and how preoccupied he was, Emily asked what was wrong. Simon, burdened by problems, didn't hide anything and told her about the tragedy with his father. I learned about the rates that caregivers charge and realized that I simply can't afford it. The company still brings in too little income. If we take money from there, it will cease to exist very soon, and we simply have no other sources of income. But I can't leave my father. That's the situation, he said. If you want, I can be a caregiver, Emily suddenly said. My mother has been ill for years, so I have experience. I can do injections and massages. My mother is in the hospital right now in critical condition, and I don't know for how long. So, I can manage to work here and take care of your father until your affairs improve, and you can hire someone else. Simon, of course, agreed, but he still had to convince his father. He understood perfectly well the hopelessness of his situation, but stubbornly refused any help. It was easier for him to lie alone all day without even being able to pour himself a glass of water than to acknowledge himself as a helpless invalid, which, in fact, he was. Sorry, Simon, this is not my story at all, he stubbornly said. I didn't need someone to serve me. Especially a young woman. Even the fact that she'll be paid for it doesn't comfort me at all. Yes, I had the opportunity to hire someone who doesn't demand much money. Seriously, she's a very good woman. She took care of her mother for many years, so she understands perfectly what needs to be done. She's a cleaner from our workplace, very neat and decent, Simon replied. A cleaner? Isn't that your mistress? The father immediately retorted. Just what I needed. Yes, she has never been my mistress, Dad. I'm telling you, she's an honest, good woman. And understand, we simply can't afford a professional caregiver. I can't spend the whole day with you either. But it's unbearable for me to think that you're suffering alone. It's just interfering with work, after all. Please, stop resisting. Thomas thought for a moment, then waved his hand. Okay, lead your mess. Yes, lead anyone, let her work off her guilt this way. I understand, you gave up Mia because of her. Simon didn't try to convince his father further. He understood perfectly well that he didn't like to admit his mistakes. And now he was glad that his father finally agreed to even such a caregiver. And so, Emily appeared in their home. At first, her ward received her with displeasure. He still believed that Emily was involved with his son. He brought her into the house not to go on dates, probably, but to live with her. Probably, he's thinking the same way he did with Mia. Thinks it might even be easier. No one to stand up for me. The fool doesn't understand that you can't just get rid of people like that. Especially now that she already has one child, and she'll probably claim she's pregnant again. Try kicking her out then. And I've turned into a vegetable. Thomas thought irritably. However, over time, his attitude towards the caregiver changed. He saw how attentively she cared for him. Yes, her relationship with Simon didn't seem personal at all. Once, he outright asked how close she was to his son. What are you talking about? She exclaimed. I just work as a cleaner in his office. And you know, he was kind not to me but to my son. And Emily told him how Simon had delighted the boy. It was hard not to believe her. She spoke so sincerely, with tears in her eyes, that Thomas understood he was wrong to blame his son for this relationship that, as it turned out, didn't even exist. But at Mark's house, things were much more complicated. You would think a prominent businessman could be happy he had avenged the offense against his beloved daughter. He had ruined his enemy, who might now be forever helpless, a full-fledged invalid. But for some reason, it didn't bring him joy. He had never been a malicious person and didn't really wish such misfortune to his longtime friend. If his son had indeed married Mia, Mark would have simply forgiven him and returned the company. After all, young people go through all sorts of things. Perhaps it's not worth meddling in their affairs, especially treating someone who is not guilty of anything like this. It's understandable that Thomas tried to reconcile his son with his broken engagement. And it's not his fault that it didn't work out. Moreover, Mia behaved in a way that made her father doubt her innocence. Yes, she was pregnant, that was beyond doubt. She had broken up with Simon. But there was no particular sadness about it at all. Moreover, she was constantly on the phone with someone. And one morning, Mark found a man in the house who was trying to sneak out unnoticed. "Who are you?" He pounced on the stranger, already thinking he might be a thief who had been in their house. "I'm sorry, I brought a delivery for Mark." "She needed it, she ordered it," the man mumbled, but it was clear he was lying. And he looked nothing like a delivery person. "No, wait before you run off. Let's go ask Mark herself what you brought her," firmly grabbing his hand, the owner said. He dragged the young man into his daughter's room, where she was lying in bed. "Mark, who is this?" "Please explain," demanded the father. "Who? This one? Oh, just an acquaintance. He came by because I needed something." "Don't think anything of it. He really is just an acquaintance, my friend Irina's brother." "Well, you know her," Mia mumbled, apparently not ready for such an invasion. Mark let the guest go and sternly said to his daughter, "Is he your lover?" "Oh, Dad, why jump to conclusions? I told you, just an acquaintance, nothing special. Besides, I'm not married, actually. A single woman, pregnant on top of that. I need support, help." And he offered it. "And did he accidentally help you get pregnant? Maybe you unfairly blamed Simon? I've seen this acquaintance of yours more than once. He's constantly hanging around the house. I think you've known him for a while. What's wrong with you, Dad? How much longer? Why do you always blame me? Barely anything happens, and it's all my fault. It's horrible. Don't you understand? You're just as cruel as Simon." Mia screamed and threw a pillow at her father. "I'm fed up." "What, you're going to say it's all wrong again? No matter what I do, it's all my fault. It's terrible. Don't you understand? You're just as cruel as Simon." Next came a disgusting hysteria, the kind Mia was a master of. Mark wasn't afraid of such outbursts because he was used to them. But now his daughter was in a delicate position. Moreover, she didn't always feel well, and she should have been protected. So he quickly brought the medicine, began to comfort her, persuading her to behave more calmly. And he almost succeeded, but alas, that wasn't the end of it. Mia, apparently feeling her power and deciding that attack was the best defense, decided to behave more boldly. Scandals and hysterics with insults to her father continued. The lover was already coming almost openly. Mark decided to find out who this person was. Maybe Mia could be married off to him, and that would calm her down. He even tried to talk to his daughter about it, but he encountered a new round of insults and accusations. What he eventually found out was not pleasing. He was a fraudster with a rather dark past, which included everything, even imprisonment. It's understandable why Mia didn't want to marry him. Yes, he probably wasn't proposing. After all, why else would he come around? Surely not out of love. To the one who, moreover, is expecting a child. These thoughts led the father to the idea of the need to check his and his daughter's accounts. Here he faced an even greater shock. Mia, it turned out, was spending money freely. Not only from her own card, but also from her father's. Moreover, she had taken out a quite substantial loan in her name. "How do you understand this, Mia?" Mark asked indignantly. "Dad, you're a businessman. Don't you realize that money exists to be spent?" "So, I spend it," she replied. "Fine. But don't you think you're spending too much? Moreover, I absolutely don't understand what exactly for. And I would like to hear an answer." "Wait, don't start a scandal. Just tell me." Jerry tried to keep calm. "What? Do I have to give you reports? I'm not your maid, not some kind of beggar. I spent and spent. And please calm down. Agree, I don't spend that much. Do you call this a little? Do you really think I have so much money that I can give away such sums right and left? Why did you take out a loan?" Mark was serious. And realizing this, his daughter went on the offensive again. "I'm not going to answer you. I don't want to and I won't. I needed it. I'm having a baby soon. Your, by the way, grandchild. I have to secure his future." She shouted. "His or his daddy's? What do you take me for? A fool? Give me a report on all your expenses right now, or else." "Or else what? Are you going to beat up a pregnant woman?" "Yes, I know you're capable of it and not surprised at all. I'm sure Mom also left this world prematurely with your help." "What?" the father exclaimed, astonished. He could endure a lot from his daughter, but not such accusations about his relationship with his beloved wife. "Yes, she left too early due to an incurable illness, and it was a serious tragedy. And now he has to hear such accusations from his daughter." "What?" Mia wasn't going to stop. "Don't think I was too young. I heard perfectly well how Mom argued with you about money often. I saw her crying because of it. And know that she hated you all her life for it. For your stinginess." Not realizing she was crossing all boundaries, Mia screamed. "You little," Mark was too exhausted even to shout. He had heard a lot from his daughter, but this. "What? Does the truth hurt? Did you also hate Mommy? Thought nobody would find out? You're wrong, everyone knew. Everyone is just afraid of you and doesn't want to talk, but I have nothing to be afraid of. You ruined her, and then complained about the expense of the funeral. I hate you for this. I'll deliberately spend your money until you become poor. Get out." Jerry thundered. "Get out of the house, you scum. Don't you dare mention your mother's name with your filthy mouth. She wasn't your mother, and I'm not your father. But we considered you our daughter, and you turned out to be a snake, a vile creature. May your spirit never be here again. You won't get a penny, you'll die under a fence." Seeing that his daughter fell silent in fear, apparently realizing she had said too much, he grabbed her by the scruff, dragged her to the door, and threw her out onto the street. Mia barely managed to grab onto the porch railing. When the door slammed shut, she realized that things seemed serious. But she didn't want to knock and ask to come back. Let her father ask her to return, she would think about whether it's worth it. And Mia walked down the street, realizing her dire situation more with every step. She didn't have her credit card, phone, or car keys with her. She simply couldn't imagine what she would do without all these items on the street. So there was nothing to do. She just walked around their elite neighborhood for about an hour and returned home. And as if nothing had happened, she rang the doorbell. Her father opened it, his face no longer angry but simply utterly unforgiving and alien. He looked at her as if she were an enemy. There wasn't even a shadow of paternal love in his gaze. Mia always knew she was an adopted daughter. But her parents never made her feel that way. And now, she saw a completely unfamiliar person before her. "Well, what's the matter, Dad? Are you still sulking? Don't want to let me in? Well, okay. Let's make up already." She tried to pass, but her father pushed her away. Turning around, he grabbed her sports bag, thrust it into Mia's hands. "Here's everything you need for the time being, documents, stuff like that. I'm not going to give you any money or valuables. You're of legal age. Go, get a job, fend for yourself, do whatever you want. You don't interest me anymore." Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Mia tried to appeal for sympathy. She cried, reminded him of her condition. It was all in vain. Her father didn't listen. He slammed the door in her face again. She kicked the door with the toe of her shoe, descended the steps, and walked away, trying to maintain an independent demeanor. But in reality, her situation was dismal. Showing up like this to her friends was utterly unthinkable. To her lover? Well, she had no idea where he lived. He came by himself whenever he wanted, after calling in advance. And now she didn't even have a phone. Reflecting on this, Mia did the only thing that seemed most reasonable to her. She went to Simon's place. Naturally, he knew nothing about what was happening in his former fiancée's life. So, opening the door, he was very surprised not so much by her visit itself as by her woeful appearance. And he was the most miserable, contrite. But for some reason, Mia didn't evoke any pity from him. Maybe because she wanted it so much? Or because he remembered her loud outcry. "Get him out of here! Go away, Simon, you're not needed here." And now what? Did he need her again? "Simon, I'm sorry, I have nowhere to go. I just dropped by, not expecting anything. You'll never forgive me, will you?" Her voice trembled as much as her eyelashes, like an actress. "I'd rather not. Think about it yourself. What's the point? Why nowhere to go? You have a home, a father who is waiting for you. And this, I don't know who he is, but it seems he also loves you," Simon said, trying to hide his irritation. "To you, maybe. I have nothing and no one. Just a baby on the way soon. Well, not so soon, but still. It's from you, Simon. Do you believe me? Will you take me in?" Her voice became a bit firmer, as if she were slightly offended. "How can I believe you? As I understand it, I'm not the only possible father. And I don't understand your desire to come back to me. Don't you realize I'm no longer a wealthy businessman, just, practically, unemployed? What interest could you possibly have in me? Try to go back to the one you were with at the restaurant. Well, what? Will you tell him your fairy tales about the baby? I have a child, I can show you the paperwork. And whose? We'll easily establish that after it's born." Her voice seemed to grow stronger, as if she were slightly offended. "He can have no relation to this pregnancy. The one you saw at the restaurant. But it doesn't matter, there was nothing there. And you're mistaken if you think I'm only interested in money. I'm pregnant, it's hard for me right now. Well, what's wrong with being at home?" Simon was already tired of this meaningless conversation. "My father kicked me out. Because I argued with you, because I'm pregnant without a husband. I disappointed him, disgraced him. Do you understand?" "Not entirely. After all, you're his own daughter." Simon really didn't quite understand. Or rather, he didn't believe what Mia was saying. He remembered how much Mark loved his Mia. "It's amazing how you don't know what's clear to everyone. He's no father to me. At least, not my biological one. I'm adopted, didn't you know? The guest said with malice. Actually, that was quite surprising news, difficult to believe. But why would Mark lie? Just so that he, Simon, would take her back? Well, he didn't even entertain such thoughts, no matter who she turned out to be or what difficult situation she was in. But pregnant and abandoned by everyone? Sorry, Mia, there can't be anything between us now. Oh, stop crying. I'm not kicking you out. Stay, live with me for a while, and then we'll see. Maybe someday I'll forget your betrayal, but even if I don't, I won't abandon the child. I'll always help you as much as I can. But, I repeat, the past prosperity is gone, and I don't think it will ever return. So, thank you, Simon. Mia exclaimed, already crying with relief and gratitude, and rushed to hug him. You're the noblest person I know. But Simon gently pushed her away. Sorry, Mia, I can't say that we're a couple now or will become one. Besides, it's possible that you'll go back to your father soon or to someone else. With your child? Yes, sorry, I don't believe it's mine. So let's just keep it as neighborly relations for now. And so they started living as neighbors. Although Mia clearly hoped they would be together again. Understanding that Thomas had no reason to treat her well, she didn't trespass into his part of the house. Besides, she didn't want to be involved in taking care of the sick. Mia noticed that there was some young woman taking care of him. But Simon explained that she was a caregiver. Worse yet, Thomas himself found out that his former fiancée had returned to his son and was very unhappy with the turn of events. But he couldn't influence the situation, as his health left much to be desired. He only expressed his displeasure to his son. Simon explained that Mia was left all alone in a difficult situation, and he couldn't act differently. But there's no talk of marriage or even cohabitation, so why worry, he said to his father. It's not happening now, but what about later? Yes, a child will be born. Are you planning to live next to her forever? And it will end up with you being cuckolded again, and even with a baby in your arms. And how did it happen that Mia isn't Mark's biological daughter? I never would have thought. I don't know these details, the son honestly replied, well aware that his father was right in many ways. But they couldn't change anything. Mia's pregnancy was difficult, especially since it soon turned out she was expecting triplets. This news excited all those involved. Thomas worried that his son would now be forever tied to Mia. He even called Mark, summoned him for a serious conversation. He came, as he was also not very pleased with his daughter's antics and the expected event, the birth of 3 grandchildren at once. Yeah, not very surprised. In Mia's family, as I understand it, it's quite common to have multiple births. Like cats, her father said. And who are your twins? Thomas was surprised. Yeah, she herself is from a pair of twins, Mark calmly replied. She's our adoptive daughter. Sarah and I got married not young, both under 40. We had no children, so we decided to adopt. And Sarah wanted a baby specifically so no one would suspect anything. She pretended to be pregnant. The due date came, it was time for someone to appear. And she happened to give birth in a maternity hospital where Sarah's sister is the head doctor. There, a twin was born, and the woman was single and poor. I said, let's wait, I don't need such happiness, it's pure criminal activity. But they decided without me. Tanya took one girl. Apparently, not the best choice. And where did the second one go? Well, how should I know? Probably to an orphanage. Maybe now she's somewhere out there in the world. But she doesn't concern us, But what to do with Mia? I'm not going to take her back. I've already given her everything she needed to live normally. And what came of it? Can I at least live peacefully now, however long it's destined? And now she'll be sucking our blood with Simon. Thanks for that, indeed, Thomas grumbled. Well, I didn't ask your Simon to cavort with her. Listen, Thomas, leave the young ones alone. They'll figure it out themselves. You better tell me, how are you doing? Well, how are you? I've started to walk little by little. There won't be full recovery, of course, but in my condition, thank you even for this. So, two fathers and future grandfathers talked, but in the end, they didn't come to any decision. They decided to leave everything to fate, and it turned out to be cruel. Mia gave birth to triplets, but she died from blood loss during childbirth. Nobody thought of leaving the children at the maternity hospital, although it was clear at first glance that they had no relation to Simon. However, Mia had already named him as the father during her prenatal visits, so there were no questions. The children were discharged and given to him as their father. He was ready to raise them with the help of a nanny, whom they invited back, Emily. She moved into Simon's and his father's big house with her son. And over time, Thomas suddenly noticed a clear resemblance between the three grandchildren and the nanny and her son. He already knew that Mia was Mark's adopted daughter and that she had a sister. So, could Emily be that sister? As it's known, the world is small, and fate has very strange whims. He asked Emily to take a DNA test, which showed that the three newborns and she were close relatives. They weren't twins with Mia, so there wasn't an obvious resemblance. Plus, their lifestyles were very different, which also made a difference. But since by this time it was clear that Emily wasn't just a babysitter and nanny for Simon, but a truly close and beloved person for both him and Thomas, they soon became one family with 4 children. And a happy family at that. This despite the fact that Thomas never managed to get his business back. But he didn't even try, deciding that in his situation, health was the most important thing. He had worked enough already. His son was grown up, a father of many children. And Simon didn't disappoint. Soon, he took that very company, bought out during bankruptcy, to a new, higher level and was able to provide for his large family. After all, Emily's mom moved in with them too.